We need to stop looking at other people, the comparing, the competition, the envy, the jealousy. It's been ingrained in us for so long in humanity because we had to fight to be who we are. We had to fight for survival. And I just feel like that requires a lot of self-observation and awareness, and that time for you to sit with who you are. Those listening to this podcast, we are in a position to be in our sovereign power, because a lot of people don't want to accept where they are right now. They just want to move from where they are right now. It's through that acceptance that we can shift and change and become more powerful. You just have to accept that this is what's going on right now, rather than resisting it, rather than fighting it, rather than trying to control it. And like I said, control is something that I've had to really learn to just let go and be guided. And then when we are guided, amazing, magical things happen. And that's how you know you're in your power. It's not like a controlling power, it's a deep trust.
Gaia Chinniah, welcome back on Just Tap In. I wanted to start off with you. If you were to describe a symbol for the collective ascension that is going on the planet right now, what would it be?
An anchor. You know, I was given a beautiful symbol around the 1st of November, and I had no idea why Spirit gave me the symbol. So I had a graphic designer draw it up for me. And I'm going to just draw it with my hands and give it to everybody that is listening today. And I know those of you who are sensitive will feel it imprint in your body, but today our conversation is for everyone's ascension. And I find it quite amusing that both you and I are wearing green for the heart chakra, for everyone to ascend from the heart. So here goes the symbol. And I just feel like that is being imprinted in the heart for all of us. And as we know, those who are Reiki practitioners, or there are symbols that are very, very powerful. And that for me is part of a wider story, but I'll get to that.
When you put the anchor and the phoenix together, what does that signify in this great astrological shift?
You know, when the anchor came to me, it was several weeks before all of the signs of the anchor kept coming to me. And the anchor and the phoenix together was how I ended up being called to a place in New Zealand, which I had no idea was Anchor Bay. And when I went to Anchor Bay, not knowing, it was my spirit guides going, you need to go to this regional park. And I just kept saying it out loud. And we arrived at this place, and I go to the restroom, and there's an anchor on the restroom. I was thinking, oh, how odd, I've been seeing that, and Spirit's been telling me about the anchor. And so I take a photo of it. Then I finish in the restroom and I walk out, and it's like, welcome to Anchor Bay. And I was like, even my partner knew. He's like, oh my God, we've ended up in Anchor Bay. This is no wonder you wanted to come here without knowing. When I got there, and then I did a little bit more research, I think it was 1879, a ship named the Anchor of the Phoenix was wrecked in this particular area in New Zealand. And so I realized why Spirit had taken me there after giving me the symbolism of the anchor for several weeks beforehand. And in these great times, as we're ascending and elevating and becoming more of who we are and lifting everybody up, including ourselves, the anchor enables us to be grounded, anchoring into who we are, but also being able to rise from the ashes like a shipwreck turned into the most beautiful place for people to come and enjoy. There's conservation there, there's the recreation there. And I feel like that integration of everything is happening individually, and then individually it's in the collective. So being anchored into who we are, trusting ourselves while rising from all the suffering that we've experienced, all the suffering in our individual lives as a collective, the ancestors. So I feel we need the anchoring to be able to rise, because as healers, it's very, very important that we are grounded as well, and not just with our head up in the clouds all the time. But I think, that symbolism, that messaging that I've received so strongly through Spirit for a number of weeks is for everybody to know that as we are moving in through this next 20 years, being sure, like we were discussing before we came online, discerning what we want, taking the time to connect in with our heart. Are we going to ascend in the space that we're moving to, or are we going to be descending? And at the moment, everyone's elevating so much that it's going to be impossible to be pulled back down. And going into the year of the snake also, we know that the snake is a powerful symbol. I'm wearing my snake that I'm got around my neck. And we know that the snake has powerful symbolism in my culture, especially the snake temples, the naga. But we know the negative side of the snakes as well. So this is why there's going to be a lot of the envy and jealousy energy that we're going to be releasing from the collective to be able to rise like the phoenix, because we're not going to be taking anything that's going to be holding us down or for our descent. It's all about ascent now.
So I would love to go deeper there with this energy of discernment, of how to recognize whether this is an opportunity coming to us or it's actually a test. Those two energies, they can present themselves very similarly, but how do we stay in our heart to discern between those two paths?
The way that I always know it's the right thing for me is that I would have been getting messages way before I actually arrive at the opportunity. And I'm not special, Emilio. Everybody has the ability to listen to what they're being given and guided to be given if they're in that state of receptivity. However, as we are attuning ourselves further, as we are learning to trust ourselves more, when we are presented with an opportunity, Spirit had told me a number of weeks ago that we need to start abiding by the cosmic laws. And this is going to tie into what we're talking about. In the month of September 2024, for me, Spirit had told me it was going to be about love, and it was going to be about restoring what love means and all of that. And I was thinking, okay, what's September got in store? September, my grandmother died. That's one story which I'll tell you in a minute. But this is how it leads to the discernment. My friend passed away 10 days after my grandmother passed away. And when I was meditating the night before his life support got switched off, I was sending him energy for a smooth transition. And in my psychic sight, I saw him standing in front of a stone angel. And I was thinking, oh, this is lovely. I was like, what do you want me to do with the stone angel? He said, I want you to give it light and turn it into life. And I'm giving this light and life to everybody listening right now, because I feel a lot of people are stuck like statues. They don't know which way to move. This is the discernment energy that's coming out and being released through the ceremony and this transmission that we're doing together, Emilio. I went into my vision and I turned the angel to light. I was so touched by this meditation that I was shown this, but not thinking too much about it. I went outside. This is like 7 o'clock in the evening. I told my partner, I said, he showed me this beautiful angel and all of that. I even put up an image on my Instagram that I found an image on Pinterest that resembled the angel that I saw. Now, this is about receiving the cues of what we're seeing, okay? So everyone having to pay attention. Maybe what you're seeing is really what you're being led to, discerning what is right for you. 1 week later, my friend's funeral. We park our car. There's a very extraordinary looking man with blonde hair parking his car in front of us. He got my eye. We walked into the funeral parlor. I knew there was going to be hundreds of people showing up for my friend's celebration. And so I went into the funeral parlor and I was going to take a pew. And this blonde man was at one of the pews and he said, you go in here. So I was like, okay. I followed because I'm always led. We are always led when we are making pure choices from the heart to the right people, the right opportunities, and the right things. I went and sat down, Emilio. My partner comes and sits next to me. The funeral proceeds. The second to last slide, Emilio, is a photo of my friend standing in front of a stone angel with the man sitting next to me. Now, anyone could have been sitting in that photo, but it was the man sitting next to me. I nudged my partner because I was thinking, oh my God, here is what I knew coming to life. The signs that I'm shown that I'm at the right place, at the right time, with the right person next to me. Funeral finishes and I'm still I get a little bit thrown when I'm around a lot of people. So I was feeling quite unstable. Went outside, we were, saying our goodbyes and all of that. We go back to our car and the blonde man is getting into his car. Now, I know when my heart is leading, I don't overthink. My partner was talking to me, but I completely ignored him and I ran up to the blonde man and I said to him, you are the man that was in the picture with the stone angel with our friend. And he said, yes, it was me. I said, where is that angel? He said, I've never met this man, Emilio, never once seen this man. She's been waiting for you. She's at my house. Would you like to come and see her? And I was like, yes, I would. He could have said the angels and wherever, the angels, I don't know. He could have said anything. His house, 2 minutes drive from my house. 1 week later, we went. This is coming back to what you're telling me. This is the magic that is available to all of us when we follow what we are shown. 1 week later, we go to this house, beautiful house. It's amazing. And he's like, would you like to hear the story about the angel first or would you like to see it? I said, I want to hear the story. 492 kilo angel shipped from Florence 30 years ago. He even told me the whole story, how to get there. Then we go and see the angel, and she's the angel of virtues, leading back to where I started. What are our virtues that we are abiding by in our life? What are the cosmic laws that are playing out for you in your life? Those laws were not invented for no reason. As above, so below. As above, the angels from above came down to show me in my physical life that the angel of virtues in the time of grief and death was coming to show me the way. And it's giving me goosebumps. The story doesn't end here, Emilio. My partner actually got all teary-eyed seeing this, and he's a manly man, doesn't cry very often. He was like, she's amazing. I was like, she is amazing. And she's 500 years old. So we touched her. We gave her reverence for coming to me in my vision, and my friend who was passing at the time of me giving him energy. We go upstairs, and this man said to me, he came out of the room with a ring, and the ring had a missing cavity in it, like the gemstone was missing. And he said to me, my partner gave this to me around the same time as the angel arrived. And he said, I took the stone out of it and I've kept this 24 karat gold ring because I knew it would be for someone and it's for you. And he placed the ring like an initiation on my finger. And then a week later, I sent it to my jeweler, and between me and my healer friends, they said, we think you need to get a star ruby for it. My jeweler said, impossible. For the size of that ring, you will never get a star ruby. 1 week later after that, a stone merchant just walks into the jewelry shop, and the jeweler calls me and said, 30 years I've been in this business. I have never, ever seen a star ruby of the size. This man has walked in and there's a star ruby here, exactly the size of your cavity. It's a shape that we've never, ever seen before. The star is guiding us.
How many points?
6 points.
Okay, I'm wearing a sweater that has a star with 6 points right now.
That's right. And it's also the Star of Bethlehem. It is everything. So because I'm a full-time healer and quite on a bigger scale because of the number of people, I'm not saying I'm amazing. I'm just giving you facts here. But this is when I get information and I'm led places, I know it's for everybody else. It's not just for me. And so the star is guiding us. So if you are following your inner star, You can't make the wrong decisions anymore. Exactly. Tell me your story with the star.
There is no story. I mean, I bought this sweater before going to Egypt last December, and I took this sweater to Egypt. It had some pretty cool like ancient symbols. I bought it. But when I was listening to your story that you were in Uluru recently, which is the land of the passed down word to word, mouth to mouth legends of the Pleiadians seeding the humans in that land. And the Pleiades are the seven sisters, but also the 6-pointed star represents them. And I didn't even think about that consciously when we jumped on, but I just wore this because I wore green last time. I'm like, I like the color green today. And then now we're finding all these patterns.
And that's what it is. So we're sharing these stories, like this magic that happened, you with your star on your jumper. I haven't worn this dress since I was 25 and I've just turned 42. I picked it out of my wardrobe and I was like, this is what I need to wear today. And heart chakra, and you wearing green, and me telling the story of the 6-pointed star, because I hadn't gone to Uluru yet before when all of this was happening, but then the story continues. If you are following your inner guidance, if you are seeing things that you know, you might be discounting them as like, oh, that means nothing, whatever. As above, so below. It's going to be a regular occurrence for people now that are willing to silence themselves and trust their visions and trust their intuition, where the magic from above is going to be coming to us, and that's how we discern. It's going to be a feeling. It's going to be obvious signs. It's going to be a continuation of a story. You're going to find that things are not so random anymore. When I talk about you, I'm not talking about exclusively you, Emilio. I'm talking about everyone that's listening. Everything will build up. Everything will build up. And that's how you will know. But at a time where there are many people struggling and trying to figure themselves out, following your inner compass. And then obviously, like you've given the brief story about the Pleiades, then I ended up in Uluru. And that was another magical thing with the 6-pointed star and the 7 sisters. And yeah, it's just been a magical time. So we are not even really needing to discern so much anymore. We are being guided, and if we listen, we will follow. And that takes a lot to be able to just trust like that, because I'm a controller. I like to be organized. I like to know where I am and what I'm doing. But now we are being called. We are being called by magical beings. We're being called by the deities that are just showing up. Have you got the courage to just follow now?
It's so beautiful. And every once in a while, we have an episode like this where it's a continuation of just synchronicities. And it's happening more and more. I think the more sacred space we create around this container, the more we treat it as a ceremony, the more we tap in before even pressing record like we did. These beautiful things start unfolding. And it's synchronistic as well, because with your story of Uluru, just this week, we released an episode with my dear friend, Robert Edward Grant. He's a polymath, mathematician, and he recently was just in Peru. And in Peru, he started finding all of these megalithic structures that resembled the elephants. And there wasn't supposed to be elephants in Peru around that time, but apparently there used to be 12,000 years ago before a big cataclysm. So with that said, you've said that Uluru represents Lord Ganesha, and the elephant energy comes in very strongly through him. And I wanted to just unravel that with you.
7th of September. Go into meditation around 7 p.m. New Zealand time. And I have never thought about Uluru before. Never ever thought about it. I'm not someone like, you know me well enough. I don't research things. I just kind of go along a bit naively with life. And I went into meditation and I saw Aboriginal ancestors saying to me, you need to come to Uluru and you need to come soon. And I was thinking, what? Why Uluru? Like, what am I meant to be doing there? So in my dazed state, I walk out of the bedroom where I meditate and I said to my partner, do you mind if I go to Uluru? And he's like, where's that? He said, is that Ayers Rock? And I said, yeah, I think it is. Within an hour, I found someone who could take me to Uluru for the spiritual reasons that I would be going for. And so I was there at Uluru for 11/11/2024, so 11th of November for 2024. And when I got to Uluru, because I just showed up. I didn't know Kata Juta existed. I didn't know Attila, which was Mount Connor, existed. I just knew I was arriving in Uluru for some spiritual reason that the ancestors wanted me to go. And so I went. I show up at Uluru, and to me, I know this is, everyone will feel their own things, but to me, when I got to Uluru, I felt a masculine presence. It's like, oh, Uluru is a man to me. And I was thinking, everyone's going to have their own interpretations of whatever. So I was just going along with what felt right for me. We sat in meditation from 5 a.m. till about 11 o'clock each day because it started to get really hot, experiencing all the elements. The reason why I was there was not for me, which I suspected. It was to reunite all the lost children with their mothers, all the Aboriginal children that had been taken between the time of 1905 and 1969. I could feel the souls of the children coming and walking with me to reunite them with their mothers. The first night in Uluru, there was a storm, and I sat up in bed and I could hear my grandmother in the wind. She wanted to reunite with her children at the end, but it did not happen. And so I knew there was a bigger cause for me going there. And then when I realized that Uluru is Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles, I was sitting in my meditation and he said to me with his bellowing laugh and voice, he was like, ha, ha, ha. He said, fruit knows how to ripen on its own. You do not need to pick it. And I was like, okay. And I shared that with the group that I was in. It's like we've been trying to pick things prematurely before it's ready to ripen, but in nature, a plum knows how to ripen on its own. An apple knows when to drop when it's ready to be picked. We just go and pick everything before it's ready and then wonder why things are not working out and wonder why it's not as sweet as it's supposed to be. And that nectar is what we're all going to start receiving as we walk through our lives now, allowing the obstacles to be moved because we are trusting in the way that the path that is unfolding for us. So with Ganesha's energy, it was amazingly powerful. And that symbol that I drew like a week or 10 days before I went to Uluru, I didn't know what it was for at the time. It's like my work. I say and do things and I don't overanalyze. At Uluru, in one section, you are not allowed to take photographs there. If we go together, we'll have a look at this together. There's one section you're not allowed to take photographs there. And it's where the mothers and the children would come and share their stories. There are codes in the monolith face that are interpreted as frequency. And in that section is the shape of the symbol that was given to me. And I was like, there we go. It's an ascension. Like they passed on stories to the next generation that are just sacred for that time. It's not meant to be shared with everybody. But as we know, those who are listening to this value you, they value me, and therefore the symbol has been shared with you for your ascension. So with Ganesha's energy there, it's so powerful. But more and more people are going to have these callings where I don't know why I'm going. Why do I need to go to Uluru? Wasn't planned. Within an hour, everything was booked. I'd found the right person that was available at the time that I had time off clients. And then we went to Kata Juta. And Kata Juta is Parvati, goddess Parvati, who is Ganesha's mother. And her feminine energy was amazing. To me, it was goddess Parvati. And it's like the divine feminine, as we discussed before coming into this podcast, that creation, that ability, like that vessel is clearing for all of us to be able to be guided in this magnificent way that we all are. And the magic that happens in my life, it's because I believe in the magic and I allow myself to see it. So Kata Juta, the mother of Ganesha, you walk through her birth canal. When I finished Kata Juta, I was really interested in how I was observing my behavior at Kata Juta. It was like I was on a mission. I was like finished meditating for hours, and then I was leading the group. I was like, right, I can get through this. I can persevere. I can rise like the phoenix. I get to the end. I had no words. I couldn't talk. I literally just had to go back to my apartment. I said, I'm sorry, everyone. I just actually can't talk, and went into that deep state of silence. Then the following day, Attila is Shiva, Lord Shiva, the creator and the destroyer. Oh boy, did we do some earth code healing there. All of us were healers in some form. And I knew that the extraterrestrial energy was coming in really strong there. So those three components, the divine feminine, Ganesha with his removing of obstacles, Katajuta and Mount Connor, all working together for our ascension, for our healing, the power of the three. And then obviously I had to buy some Palladian indigenous art also, because I was like, oh my God, the stars actually led me here now. It was incredible.
I've heard you say that it's very interesting how you're experiencing time now in specific. I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that because we normally perceive linear time, but I feel like we're moving into a stage of consciousness where we can perceive, like, this healing that you did, you probably had already done it before, right? That's why you were remembering, you were charging, and you were, in that state. So how are you experiencing time now?
I don't know why I want to give you this example, but I will, because it's something that's like a case study for us to look at in terms of what you are saying. Now, I never remember the client, but I remember certain stories because it's like, for me, wow, I'm awe-inspired. So a client comes online. I believe he was maybe in his mid-60s. I can't remember where he was, somewhere in Europe. And I don't allow my clients to speak when I first meet them because I like to pick up whatever spirit wants me to do. And I start tapping the table. And I'm making a rhythm. And then an extraterrestrial comes in. And this is the merging of the timelines, right? Where this person is giving me information from a higher perspective that is actually going, which I didn't know was impacting him now. This extraterrestrial energy comes in and said to me, he's worked for us before. He is the encoder and decoder of frequency. And I was like, okay, told him this. And then I went into a portal, into a lifetime before, where he was working with extraterrestrials, but for a human organization. And this was, can't even remember what the time frame was of this. And I could hear the coding. And I was like, I said, I don't have the words for it, but I said, it's like Morse code. I can feel the frequency going into your body now, awakening this power in you, activating what you need to be doing now in your mid-60s going forward. I said, this is the time for you to shine. The time is now because it's merging together. There is no timeline anymore. It's not like I lived this life in 1601 and in 2024 or 2025, I'm a different person. And so I just kept tapping and I was making all these high frequency sounds. And I said, look, I don't know why I need to give you this energy, but what is this about? I create and make music, he said to me. And he said, I do this commercially. And I said, well, you might think you're creating and making music commercially, but I said, you are the encoder and the decoder of frequency. I said, so your commercial music that you're putting out, because I think he does all sorts of music, are going to be now encoded with a frequency that's going to heal people. And he was just looking at me like, oh my God, he said, I've got to my mid-60s and I didn't know that I had the power to do that. And so that is how I'm experiencing time. The level of information I'm getting, not only for myself, but for the clients this is what you need to be doing now. This is everything we've done. Like when we look at our own individual backgrounds, right? Nothing has been a waste of time. My corporate degree, my qualifications, my experiences has led me to be able to be here in this moment with you and effectively communicate what I'm communicating. And that, again, is the same with the previous timelines that are collapsing now, is that who you were is who you are now, and you are going to be called, whether you like it or not, to step into it. that's when you need to follow. Like this man knows now, he's thinking his life is over. And I was thinking mid-60s, you're so young. I said, your music is going to change. And I'm seeing more and more people like that where spirit's going, it's time for you to step up. It's not just music you're playing, you're healing people with that music. So whoever is listening, whatever you are being guided to do, trust that and step into it, because it's from a higher timeline that is coming down now in order for this time where we're moving into AI and more advanced technology. Sure, some of it's going to be amazing for us. And it's an opportunity for the jobs that are going to become obsolete. If you are in that position, it's only because you've got another calling that is your true purpose.
And it's like that piece of information rewrote his entire future if he chose to take action on it. But is it possible that that also was able to rewrite his past?
Absolutely. So now I'm getting more information about this particular case study. I remember saying to him, do you have a couple of children? He said, I do. I said, is there a son and a daughter? He said, yes. And I said, it's interesting because none of them want children, I said to him. And he said, you are absolutely right. He said, that's what I actually wanted to also talk to you about. He's like, why is my generation just stopping? And I said, well, it is because you are not fully stepping into your full potential and your full purpose. Therefore, your children feel like they can't. And therefore, they don't want to procreate because they don't want to have children that are feeling lost in the world. But here's the thing. The children that are coming in know way more than we do. They already know what we're coming for. So in that activation, because my job is to activate people's gifts through ways that they may expect or may not expect. Sometimes the healing goes in this weird roundabout way, but we actually healed his children and opened up the door to bring in the opportunity for those children of his adult children to feel safe to bring in the next generation, knowing that they already know what they're here for. Because that's one of the biggest things I hear. People are afraid to bring in children because what's happening in the world? Are they going to be safe? Are they going to have jobs? Are they going to be able to be anchored in who they are, but then fly and rise like the phoenix? The answer is yes, they are. Oh, I'm getting heart palpitations talking about this. Yes, they are. So I think, yes, the history gets rewritten. In terms of this lifetime and also the previous life where he already had that information. The way I'm seeing it now, it's like he was working for some sort of like secret service or something like that and being plugged into that extraterrestrial energy and frequency because he knew how to interpret that. Because I just kept singing to him and doing all kinds of things, and his eyes are getting bigger looking at me, and I was thinking, gosh, like, what am I doing? And then when he says, that's been my job forever, is making music and writing music and playing music, but not just as a hobby. He sells his music. And I was like, wow, people are really being asked to step up. But yes, children were healed, and also future children, grandchildren, if those people want to bring them in.
Gaia, one of the most beautiful comments that came through from our first conversation that I wanted to read to you is they said, I love the sovereignty that she speaks from. And in another one of your Monday mantras, you talked about sovereign power and how we have the birthright, the spiritual decree to decide how we are going to live now. So where does this sovereignty come from, and how can someone activate that within themselves to be able to live in such degree of freedom, sovereignty, to create their highest timeline, to create, and activate their gifts to live the best life that they can?
On a practical level, because I'm also practical despite doing spiritual work, we need to stop looking at other people. And what I mean by that is the comparing, the competition, the envy, the jealousy. It's been ingrained in us for so long in humanity because we had to fight to be who we are. We had to fight for survival. And I know there are people on earth at this time who are fighting for their survival. We, you and I, those listening to this podcast, we are in a position to be in our sovereign power. And that sovereign power for me comes from your sacral energy, where you are filling up that vessel to be able to speak from that part of your body, to be able to trust who you are, to be able to be guided and be strong in the decisions that you're making. When I make decisions about anything, I will feel into my sacral, I will feel into my heart, and if anything feels off, and when I was a bit younger, I would still do things even if it was off, and it would turn around and bite me in the bum. It would be like, you knew this was the wrong decision. So being in that sovereign power is really knowing your value and your worth. Like, I will meet incredible healers in the work that I do, but they feel that people are not attracted to them, or they're not meant to be seen and heard. And that is because they're too busy looking elsewhere, like, I need to be like her, or I need to be like him, or we need to come back to knowing our true value. And I just feel like that requires a lot of self-observation and awareness, and that time for you to sit with who you are. There are parts of my personality that I've had to heal over many, many years that are the shadow parts of me. She comes up sometimes when I'm pushed, my buttons are pushed. And I think we need to embrace that cycle of life and death. Like, as I'm being reborn into this part of my life, having just had a birthday, I'm ready to put to rest those parts of me that don't exist anymore. Are you willing to do that? Because I noticed that there were certain things, like certain dramas, that I was wanting to get caught up in, because I didn't know what it was like to just be balanced, be anchored, be at peace. I was always used to being destabilized. That sovereign power comes from literally like being Uluru, being a rock, being just sitting there anchored in your position, knowing that this is who I am. This is what I came here to do. And even if you can't figure it out now, there's nothing to figure out anymore. We're being led anyway. You might be led to me. You might be led to another practitioner who's going to give you that insight. But even like me, the angel getting to Uluru, we are all being given this information, especially those who are evolving with the information that's being put out for everyone to receive and enjoy. Sovereign power comes from really knowing who you are and knowing your truth and living by your virtues, living by the cosmic laws, knowing that every intent, what I noticed, I learned this really quickly, Emilio, when I started working with clients. What a client gets from me is based on them. It's their expectation. That's why I always tell clients, never have any expectations, because Spirit's just going to guide us wherever they want to go. How we show up in the world is what we're going to receive. So if you're angry all the time, or if you're feeling like I'm unworthy and all of that, that's not being in your sovereign power. Those are the areas that you need to work on to come back to being anchored in who you are, being that warrior, knowing that the deity will come to you when it's the right time for you to be guided by that deity. I believe when we last spoke, Krishna had come to me because I'd just been to India, and this time it was Ganesha and the star ruby and the six-pointed star, all of that. We're all getting this. And that's how you know you're in your sovereign power, when things are just flowing and you can accept the death, as I did in September, even though I'm still very upset about the death of my grandmother and my friend, because it was all very traumatic. But I accept that. I accept that that is a part of life. And when we can accept that, that is also sovereign power, because a lot of people don't want to accept where they are right now. They just want to move from where they are right now. It's through that acceptance that we can shift and change and become more powerful. There's a lot of times where I've had to just go, okay, Gaia, you just have to accept that this is what's going on right now, rather than resisting it, rather than fighting it, rather than trying to control it. And like I said, control is something that I've had to really learn to just let go and be guided. And then when we are guided, amazing, magical things happen. And that's how you know you're in your power. It's not like a controlling power. It's a deep trust.
I've also heard you say that you feel very comfortable handling the energy of death because it's inherently connected to rebirth. In the last show we did, you talked about how in the upcoming December of 2024, there was going to be an exodus of souls to allow new energy to come in. But someone that might not be comfortable in that energy of death, how could you give a new perspective around, these moments in time where souls might decide to leave? Maybe there's a higher even perspective of why that's the reason, why that's the case, and how we can see death with new eyes.
Death, there is no spiritual bypassing with death, because we are all human beings. We all love someone. We're all going to cry. Even thinking about losing people that I love will bring me to tears. So please don't think that this is anything to do with we're finding an excuse or a way to navigate around it. I see a lot of people that have experienced the most traumatic death experience through losing children. It's horrible. It's not about that, but it's about accepting that we don't talk about it. Like in my culture, the number of ceremonies that are done to prepare the body and to prepare the soul for the next life and to prepare, it's like it's the next part of the journey. And I think those of us that are experiencing death and will, because it's inevitable for all of us, including our own physical death, it's looking at what that brings you back to. Because like September, losing my beloved grandmother, who was like a mother to me because I lived with her for the first 5 years of my life, it was like, do you know what I actually thought? And it was it's a very little girl thing. I was like, who's going to love me like that? Who is going to love me that way, where it's not healer Gaia, it's not what I can do for you, it's that pure unconditional love. But then I felt it in spirit and I realized, oh, you are there. It's just I have to adjust to a different way of being. And that's what death is, because after a death, be it our own internal deaths or the physical ones, which I know we grieve, I'll grieve my grandmother forever. But it's that time of seeing what's next for us, because I have seen the millions of children that are wanting to come in. This is why they sent me to Uluru to reunite in spirit all the mothers with the lost children. Other people, other healers, I'm sure will be sent elsewhere to do this type of work. It won't just be me. But as we are reuniting people in spirit, we are reuniting ourselves with experiencing death to bring in new life in so many ways, because those souls that choose to ascend, they're going to learn from a different perspective. And this gives me another example that they're telling me to tell you about now. I had a lady come and see me, again, can't remember who or what the circumstances, and I start to talk about her relationship because she had brought in a child, and this relates to the life and death. I said, every lifetime you have a son, but I said, it never lasts with your partner. And she's silent. And then in spirit, I see a father figure. And the father figure is telling me I'm her father, but I've passed away. And then behind the father, I see another man who says, well, I'm the uncle. And I was like, okay. So I've said, this is all about the masculine healing, but my client is a female. And what the situation was is when I went into a different timeline, is that this person was having great difficulty in forming relationships with men. Therefore, she gave birth to a son because she had to heal that masculine wound, because her father would take his life in lifetimes before. And she's looking at me all shocked. And I said, your father's passed away, right? She said, yeah. I said, did he take his life? Because I can see it in a lifetime before. She said, yes. And I said, well, why is the uncle? It's like they're glued together. And she said, he took his life too. So two brothers took their lives. They did that in a lifetime before, but she hadn't accepted that death, which is so hard to accept. And please hear, I'm not saying that this is an easy thing to do. It's just an example of what Spirit was showing me. But in order for her to live again, to bring in more life because she wanted to have more children, she had to heal and make amends with what has been in this lifetime of losing the men in her life in such a traumatic way, which was repeated from another life before. And so that healing of unconditional love had to be done that day to accept the death that is so, so traumatic in order for her in a physical body to be able to live more. So we need to look at what is the death teaching us in our individual circumstances. What is it showing us? And from there, it's not spiritual bypassing, but it's giving us the spiritual observation and perspective of what was the death for. And that can be very hard. And you've got your star that I'm looking at behind you on your right shoulder.
The Merkaba, yeah.
Yeah, your Merkaba. And I've got mine here with me. So it's really interesting as we're talking about this, all the deathly energy is leaving us. A lot of people from the previous podcast actually emailed an Instagram to say that during our talk, they were having shifts. And I feel like those deathly energies are leaving us for us to ascend with that vehicle that we've put in everyone's heart so that they can come into more life. So death is a hard one. I am still learning, Emilio, around death because at 42, I still haven't experienced that much physical death. And I'm sure as it happens, I will learn more. But I know from what I have seen and what I've experienced through clients, it's again seeing how those people taking their life had affected her life to live in this physical realm. She couldn't anchor. She couldn't trust the man that she was with because how could she when the men in her life had taken off in some way? They chose to leave at that time. So everyone's leaving for their own reasons, but it's reasons that we're going to have to sit with and learn as we progress in our soul's journey.
The story you told there, it almost seems like what she experienced with her father, the uncle, was also limiting her from bringing in new children. So fertility issues. And I've also seen in other places that it's almost like our generation is stepping into the highest levels of infertility that we've ever seen because of also environmental factors.
Of course.
But I feel like there's also an emotional, deeper layer there around birth. Do you want to go a little bit deeper into that?
I see a huge number. I mean, most of my clients are women. Of course, I do see men also, but I see a huge number of people that are wanting to conceive. And there are a large number of miscarriages along the way. There are other complications that happen. And when I discuss this with the souls of the children that are coming and going, they are basically saying that they're not ready for me yet because they haven't. These children are wanting parents who are in their sovereign power, that are in their authentic expression, that are in that state of feeling abundant and wealthy, even if you're not seeing it just yet, just knowing they're wanting to come into the secure, sovereign being before they want to take on that physical form. And so, yes, obviously, environmental factors, what we're consuming, what we're in all ways, not just food-wise, but just anything we're consuming, of course, is affecting fertility rates. But from my perspective, because my work is this way inclined, these souls are so strong and so powerful. Like I literally, when I saw them all show up in my room one day, they were just millions of lights in my room. And I was looking at all of them. And I actually had my Maori healer friend with me. I said to her, can you see all of this? She said, yep. She said, those are all the babies that you're going to be helping connect with their mothers. I said, wow. I said, there's lots of them. He said, and then we were discussing the mothers are not ready yet because of the power that these souls hold. So that's why if you are wanting to conceive and it's been a bit of a journey and a nightmare to get there, there is a reason. It's not just about you. That soul is coming to experience and teach you things through its conception and then what's perceived as a loss. Like I worked with a woman once where she was having multiple miscarriages, but I knew the light was still inside of her. Like the light hadn't left. The light was still inside of her, just waiting for the right moment when the woman was about to just completely trust herself and know that the child was also experiencing what it needed to experience. But that loss is the losing children, pregnancies, especially when you really want that, is a horrific loss. And again, cry, be emotional, be angry. But then when it's time for you, you will be able to look above and think, actually, this is a whole other being that has its own journey, that has its own soul purpose, that is waiting to come at the right time. And that could be astrological alignment. It could be whatever. And we need to, again, wait for the fruit to ripen. We don't need to pick it ourselves. And so I feel like fertility will start to rise because of all the healing work that people are reaching out to practitioners to do, DNA-wise, ancestry-wise, reuniting lost babies with their mothers, whether it's in terms of what I needed to go and do because my spirit guides told me to, or in the way when I meet clients and, this woman needing to reunite with her father in order to reunite with her husband to bring in a child. All of it's happening in a beautiful way, but it is quite complicated. So that's why finding the right practitioner to help you, if they have those skills, link it all, is going to bring that fertility rate up. It's quite amazing how much is actually physical and how much is actually healing and the spiritual context of bringing in a new child in the world.
Interesting. And we also touched on this energy of comparison and looking at other people in terms of, us wanting to be doing this healing work or starting to channel. And, we see people around us, even people that have been on the show, and we're like, oh, I want that. I want to be doing that. I read a quote from you that said, we actually need to address what is going on in our relationship energy for us to be able to be free to be a healer or the channeler that we want to be. So what is it in the energy of our relationships, rather than this energy of comparison and doing it for the wrong reasons, that would allow us to be the greatest healer, the greatest channeler, the greatest mystic that we can be in this lifetime?
Yeah. The ego needs to be completely removed when it comes to this kind of work, because I do feel that some of us are just chosen to do it. And so therefore, it's like anything. Some people are great actors or singers or artists. I'm not going to be that because it's not who I am. I'm just being myself. And I think that there's going to be a lot more healers. There's a lot of powerful, amazing people that are coming up in the world that have very unique, special gifts. But when I wrote that quote, it was because Spirit had told me people are looking in the wrong place. They're looking at, like what you said, they're looking at, how do I do what she does? And how can I become her? And how can I do that? And how do I... And when I look at, just even from my own research, just in my own life, the most successful healers, and whatever success means to you, whether you've got a busy practice or whatever, I can see that it's based on how that person relates to another, because certain people will attract more clients and people that want to be healed by you or, assisted in that process, because we are just human beings with our own things too. And I feel like the more that I worked on my relationship energy, my closeness with my friends, my loving relationship with my mum, healing things between me and my dad, going to Uluru and reuniting with the soul of my grandmother and then reuniting that, it's all how we relate to people. So if you are having issues in your own relationship, be it intimate relationship with your child, with your parents, with whoever, that is something you want to address before you step into or while you're stepping into your healing abilities, because I still heal all my things as well as they come up, because that is going to show Spirit that you are not just wanting to heal people because you want power and it's glamorous to see and all of that. You are taking ownership over your flaws and the things that you need to work on, because the health of your relationships is going to be the health of the people that you're going to attract to you. So it's all linked, Emilio. So if you're looking to build up your healing practice or whatever you're doing, look at how you're relating to the people around you. If you're someone that falls out with people all the time and you're finding yourself like getting mad at seeing other healers doing well or whatever it is, that's something you need to address in yourself first, because it's going to impact the type of healer that you are showing up in the world, because people want to come to the people that are really authentically in their power, that are leading from the front in some way. And I always tell people, I am not perfect. I've got things going on, but I always leave enough time to evaluate and observe myself. and go, okay, what's going on in my life? I'm going to be practicing what I preach and not the other way around. So I think it's really, really important that we look at relationships, because it's so hard to, not hard, but challenging to meet people that we really connect with and to trust, because I think we all experience situations where you think you can trust someone and then they stab you in the back, or they, what I said to you before, a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's something that if you're wanting to not be faced with that as often, it's coming from the purity of the relationships that you have. But it's all linked. Like when I see clients, this is another story that wants to come. This is a great story. Woman comes to see me, and I go into a lifetime where she was a healer in a very obscure place in Africa. And I won't say the name because I keep it as vague as possible. I'd never even heard of this place. And I said it to her. I said, oh, you've had a life in this particular place. I said, I don't even know where this is in Africa. And I said, the issue here is, and again, this is what Spirit showed me, she was a very powerful healer in this lifetime, incredibly powerful, where men were afraid of her. And I said, you marry, but the man couldn't handle your power and therefore ended up locking you up somewhere because he didn't want you to showcase your power to the world. And I said, this then transcends into other lifetimes where you're beautiful and successful and powerful, but you can't make a relationship work. And she looked at me and she said, my ancestry is actually from that place that you mentioned in Africa. And I was like, okay. And she said, it is exactly why my relationships never work, because they always say to me that I'm too powerful and that and I was like, this is so interesting. So we need to heal this particular issue so that you can be in your power, but you're meeting someone who can handle that power rather than feeling in competition with it, jealous of it, can't handle it. And that's where we're ascending in that sovereign power. No one's asking her to dull down who she is. It's lifting her relationship energy up for her to meet someone at that same level. And that's what I mean, that if you are wanting to step in, because she's an amazing healer, like she could, the things that she could do. But she was just, I didn't realize that connection. And then I went in and did what Spirit asked me to clear that and open up the path to bring in a loving relationship where it's safe for her to just be her. And that's the thing. We want to feel safe being us. Like, sure, people can call me unusual and a witch and whatever, but I'm just being myself. And most people can see that. And the only reason that they can see that is because they can see themselves. They can see that they are in their authentic power. Therefore, they are willing to respect and see it in you. I notice that if we get messages where, very, very few messages, hate messages or whatever, I always look and think that person just can't even see themselves. So they don't even want to recognize me and what I'm offering because they can't see it in themselves. And that, again, is how we relate, how you show up to a session. If you're wanting me to prove something to you, you're not going to get from me what Spirit would give you if you just trusted that, hey, I honor you and you're honoring me. And with that energy, we can grow and expand and activate your gifts and heal lots of relationship patterns in your ancestral line for you to step in to be a successful healer.
Beautiful. And looking at it for a moment from the masculine perspective or from the man's perspective, this doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship, but how can a man stand in the face of a woman who's in her fullest power and meet her there instead of try to put her down?
This is another example. I had a client, she was in her 60s. These are all recent ones, so that's why they're like, Spirit's like, talk about this one. I'm like, okay, this is an example of what we're talking about. She was in her 60s, I believe, and Spirit's telling me very powerful healer. So I was like, great. So I tell her that. And she's like, yeah, I thought so. But she said, I'm just being stopped. I said, don't tell me anything else. I go into a timeline where she's healing people in the earth. People are lying on the earth, meaning lying on raw ground, on sand, on soil. And she's putting activations around them and whatever. And her husband comes out in that vision going, get them off my property. I don't want them here. Do you know what happened when I was saying this? This woman's husband actually physically walks into the room, interrupts the session. Where's blah, blah, blah? And she looked at me and I said, there we go. And she was like, this is what he does. He just interrupts every time I'm trying to ascend. This was really fascinating because, again, didn't know anything. Extraterrestrial energy came in, light code frequency. They said to me, she's got rhesus negative blood. We need to activate her blood now so that nothing can get in the way, no more interruptions. And I said to her, do you have rhesus negative blood? She said, I do. I said, okay. Activation started happening. So your question, and how does the masculine support the feminine to not be afraid? In my situation, my partner is the rock, the anchor that holds me down so that I can fly. But I know with the male healers that I see that are in the gender of the male, they're more in their feminine. They might be in a relationship with a woman, but you have to be in your feminine to receive and be intuitive. And so whoever is playing whatever part needs to be that anchor, to be secure in the value and the worth that they play within the relationship, and they cannot feel insecure by that. So in the case of the lady where I'm saying all this and then her husband walks in, it was some frivolous thing like, where's the blanket or where is the blah? And she just looked at me going, this is what he does, because he was doing it in the lifetime before, like interrupting the healing. So we are now looking for relationships that can handle our power despite what gender we are in, so that the feminine can grow, but that takes the masculine to hold us down. Because I'm actually really grateful I have a partner that's not with the head in the clouds all the time, because he just keeps me grounded. But I know male healers who are incredible, they're in their feminine, whose wives do that for them. So you need to be balance. You have to be very strong in knowing that my partner is going to be flying up. My job is to keep them grounded. They are my anchor. So we're all looking for our anchor, whether we've got a partner or we find it in an animal. I'm getting a lot of like the elephant spirit coming in. And that's coming in a lot with clients also. But again, representing the divine feminine or the divine masculine within the person that I'm helping ascend and during a session. So yeah, I just think whoever we're choosing to be in relationships with, your role is needing to be more secure in order to let that person fly. And vice versa. Yeah. I bring the magic, he brings the grounding. It's great.
The soil. One thing I'm realizing now, the more I dive deeper into this work, is that everything is cyclical and everything goes in cycles. I've heard you say that everything is a ceremony, but people are not completing the cycles. So what do you mean by that? As we're now entering the cycle of a year, we're heading into a new year, 2025, which has been said that is going to be a lot of stuff coming up for this year, which maybe we can touch on a little bit after. But first, why are people not completing the cycle? What is holding them back from that?
I actually think people just don't know. They don't know that that is something that is actually going to help them close out a chapter and open up a new one. Like, I'm noticing even in myself, like when I got back from Uluru, I could hear more. And I'm not talking about like audibly hear more. I am talking about that, but not so like in a clear, audient type of way, where I was hearing and seeing more than I normally would. And part of that realization, sitting in ceremony with Uluru, with Katajuta, with Attila, is that we were reuniting things. Reuniting the souls, reuniting the land, whatever we were all doing there, our own individual parts that we were playing. And I think it's really important. Like before coming on here, I'm sitting here drinking my cacao because I knew this was going to be a ceremony for us. And I wanted that to be already heart opening for the both of us. And I think that when we enter anything, we can create a ceremony every day of gratitude, of thanks, of whatever. But as we approach end of years or as we approach birthdays, I now, like this birthday, actually had a ceremony with my girlfriends, my closest girlfriends. We were all just crying. They were like, "We didn't expect you to invite us here to cry, guys." Like, I didn't know this was going to happen. This is part of the ceremony of the closure that we're all needing for this end of the year before opening up a new one. And in my culture, there's a ceremony for everything. There's a ceremony for when you start menstruating as a girl. And when I was a young teenager, I thought how horrific and embarrassing that was. But now I look back at those photos and think how incredible. They were initiating me into womanhood. And then, ceremonies for everything. So we can create our own ceremonies to close things off and acknowledge, this is what I learned from that. This year has given me pain, but it's given me so much growth. And that's very true for me. And now I'm stepping into my most majestic self. And Spirit told me that on my birthday. Said, this is the most majestic part of who you are. And I think that when we take the time, and I know people have busy lives and work, and ceremonies don't have to take hours. It could be 5 minutes of consciously sitting with your cacao or your coffee or your tea and acknowledging what is ending for you. I wish I'd done that with previous relationships because I was still healing them 14 years after because I hadn't actually taken the time to work with someone or work with myself to acknowledge I'm ready to let that go now. I know what I've learned. And now the ceremony, closing ceremony and opening up of a new time and honoring who I am in this stage stage of life. And we can do that ourselves. Just we don't need anybody, but it of course helps to have a practitioner that's going, okay, these are the things that we need to close out. Ceremony is going to be very much more important as we go forward because of all, the things that are happening in our life and in the world to stay centered in who we are, knowing that those cycles of ending and beginning again are very, very important, but acknowledging the points of closure and rebirth.
When it comes to closure, especially from a relationship, do we require any participation from the other person in order to have that closure?
Not in my perspective. From what I understand and how I've worked with clients, and even stuff for myself, the healing from relationships, as we know, can be lifetimes, regardless of whatever the relationship is, father and daughter, whatever. But no, we don't need the participation physically from another because say the person has passed away, their soul will step forward in a session to say, we want this healed now. And I might be going back generations before that the client doesn't even know. I'll be like, okay, this is your great-great-grandmother 4 generations before that we're needing to go and put back in the family tree in the right order in order for you to be able to let go of her abandonment issues so that you are not carrying them anymore. So no, we don't need their participation. But if you're working with someone who sees spirit and works in that way, they will bring it up naturally for you. And what I notice also, it's all well and good to say, healing from a relationship. These things take time. Like sometimes, I don't just, when I'm working on myself and getting help from my healer friends for whatever I can't see for myself, I will strike when the iron is hot. So if something is bugging me, I don't just suppress it anymore. I'll be like, I need help with this. I need to acknowledge this now. That's how you heal. You get rid of it at the time rather than waiting for it to accumulate because that's how it gets passed on to all the other generations because then we don't have the ceremony to close the issue at the time. So address things when they arise rather than waiting and thinking that you're okay because it does come back. And I know that with me also, personally.
Strike when the iron is hot. I haven't heard that saying. Is that from New Zealand?
I don't know. Maybe it is. It just came out of my mouth naturally. But strike when the iron is hot. It's like, sometimes I'll get up and something will be ruminating in my head. I'm like, no, I need to address this now because I know I can feel this go into my liver or pay attention. Where is it going in your body? That in itself is showing you, I'm experiencing a lot of people that are having benign tumors or fibroids or lumps coming up in the body. I gave an example recently when I used to have my distribution company, never ever had boils before, but I had boils coming up on my legs because I was so stressed out and frustrated that my blood was boiling. These lumps and bumps are coming up now as blocked energy to address. So if you don't address it at the time, it's going to come up in some way. This is why, as a healer, I can't see a whole lot of people at once, but in between, I will stop, make sure I'm clear of other people's energy and go, okay, what do I need to look at now in my life so that I can be ensuring that I'm a person with my own experiences too. And I think that striking while the iron is hot is going to be very important. There's no time now or the space in our vessel to accumulate old things anymore. It's going to start showing up in ways that are going to be very uncomfortable if we don't deal with it.
In what ways would you recommend to create a ceremonial space as we're entering a new year? And I know New Year's rituals is like very big in this space, and people want to do their manifestation journal and do whatever little rituals they have, which is beautiful. I have my own, but what are some ways that you recommend to create the space for ceremony? Not necessarily the ritual, but the space for it.
The space, like for me, I do these things by myself. And I think you have your own thing. But the space for it is, even if you're going out for a walk, that can be, as long as you're consciously intending whatever you are doing, the space will be made, because it's not about, like you said, it's not the ritual, like I have to put a crystal here and a sage stick here and a Palo Santo there or whatever. But I just feel connecting with nature for this particular cycle that we're going into a new year is going to be very important. Because when you said that, I saw myself walking through the bush, and they're like, you need to be doing that as your space of connecting and anchoring into earth, but also acknowledging that the path is unfolding for you for 2025. So creating the space is not as hard as we think it is. It could be when you're walking your children in the park. It could be something that is natural to you, something that is of a natural surrounding, whether you're sitting outside in your garden or you're going for your daily walk. It's the intention that you set at that time, even if it's a repeated thing that you're always doing. So that could take 5 minutes, but I just feel like it is important that we do create that space. And it could be in something that we're always doing on a daily basis, like our daily walk, to ensure that it is done, that we're acknowledging what has been is been, and what is to come is to come.
I've also heard you say that our uniqueness and individuality is really important for the next 19-year cycle. What do you mean by uniqueness, individuality, and how we can cultivate that more in our lives?
We all have gifts. And they may not be really highly elevated spiritual gifts, although everyone's going to have their own spiritual experiences if they're focusing on themselves and meditating and living life consciously and as pure as possible with their virtues and all of that. But every individual I see, not one doesn't have something that makes them different from the other. Sure, I can categorize certain groups of souls, because sometimes in a week I'll be like, wow, this is amazing. I'm seeing people that have very similar stories, and that's because Spirit's wanting to teach me something about this type of category. But it's like giving the same ingredients to you and to me. The end result's going to be different because of who we are. And I feel like this next 20 years, as we're coming into our sovereign power, 19, 20 years, we need to know who we are and what we have to offer. And there are so many healers that can help you identify what that is. And then, like you said earlier, it's your choice whether you want to trust that and step into it. I remember years ago when I first started doing this work, and I was, still figuring out, what am I doing? What is this for? And I remember Spirit said to me, this person already knows what to do. And they came back to me saying, no, I don't. I'm like, you actually do. If you just trust that and open up yourself, Your own unique way is going to be developed and shown to you if you just take a step forward. So everyone is going to have similar ingredients, but the cake's going to be a different outcome because it is who you are. That's why there's so many healers in the world. Some will see past lives, some will do this. Everyone's unique, and they will have their people that will go to them, or they'll be called to heal earth codes or whatever. But that's going to be coming out even more because of all this AI and everything. We're going to be forced to look at what are our unique attributes that are going to enable us to serve, also make a living for ourselves, because we all need to do that to be able to live here on earth. And that's going to take a lot of, evaluation of who we are. And that may be self-evaluation or getting some help to go, actually, where do I sit? What are my unique attributes? But we all have them. There is not one person I've ever seen that hasn't got a unique offering to give and contribute to the world.
Beautiful. Last time we closed out with a bit of let's say an energy update or a forecast on the next few months ahead. And I know people will probably be listening to this around the end of the year toward the new year. Where shall we be placing our energy, our attention? Especially when we're going to start seeing a lot of big headlines in the news, I assume, to start the year off in the best state possible without getting fed into all the chaos and fear that might pull us toward.
And that's going to be inevitable. And that's why I always focus from a soul progression point of view. What can we do? So this December 2024, you want to be closing out cycles, ceremonies, writing and burning, doing whatever rituals, seeing your practitioners just to close things out. Even I'm going to be doing that for my own thing so I can start the new year afresh. Now, I'll just talk about the first few months in 2024, the words that Spirit were giving me for 2025 is that this is going to be the master healing year. So we're going to start seeing more awakenings and people really wanting to step into that full power of being able to serve, but also looking and evaluating what they need to heal with their relationships. And so therefore, January 2025 is obviously a time of new beginnings. But Spirit had told me that the father and masculine energy needs to be looked at that time within us. So again, anchored, being grounded into who we are and looking at how you are being controlled. So for example, if something comes up in the media in January, are you going to be controlled by that narrative, or are you going to liberate yourself by feeling strong and sure in who you are and what you're wanting to create for the year? The other words that I put here is that we want to look at if we have any addictions or attachments in January. So virtues or vices are the things that we want to look at for January. For February, Spirit was telling me there's going to be a focus on our desire. Now, these are just things that you can go back and bring yourself back to when, life is busy. And it's like things might be breaking down in February, but it's to come back together to form a partnership. There's going to be an alchemy taking place. So focusing on your desire, like, you know what it's like. We start the year, we're all excited. Then February, things start to come down a little bit. It's like focusing on the desire, and that could be building the desire in your relationships also. So as we know, end of the year, relationships can either people are getting engaged, people are getting married, or they're breaking up. February, it's also Valentine's Day coming up, which gets everyone, even if people think I don't get involved with the commercial side of things, it can make people feel a certain way in February if they aren't. But partnership is coming up and bringing in alchemy, the magic of converting something into something more magical. And then March, I have got, it's time to withdraw. So there's going to be something happening in March that we need to withdraw and be adaptable to our situation so that we are not being caught up with whatever's going on, but we can still remain aligned. So I use these things just to come back to myself when life is getting busy, when there are things happening around me. I'll go, okay, what am I meant to be doing? Okay, focusing on my masculine energy, feeling secure and strong in myself, looking at the desire that I have in my relationship with my work, my relationship with my partner, with my friends, whatever. And actually, I already know the first 3 months of roughly what's happening in my life, and it actually falls into what Spirit has been telling me. So I think, next year, master healing year, which means really accelerated healing for all of us in terms of our individual lives. The snake energy, we will be seeing, people coming out of the woodworks that are lurking, that may not have the best intention. So therefore, the more light we are, the more that we are focusing on us and ourselves and not looking anywhere else, the more you're going to attract that light to you. So I'm excited. I'm always excited for every year, regardless of the challenges it brings, because it's an opportunity to grow wiser. It's an opportunity to evolve. It's an opportunity to heal things that you didn't even know existed. But it's also really important that we just live our lives too. Enjoy life as much as you can. And trust that your spirit guides, your ancestors, everyone has actually are supporting you in your steps forward. We just need to start communicating with them a bit more.
What do you think we're going to be alchemizing the most in 2025 as a collective?
I think we're going to be appreciating each other more. So rather than looking, while that's going to be happening, those of us who are on this journey, we will be taking what we have previously seen as challenges or attacks and turning that into our power. So that alchemy there is going to be very, very powerful. Like all of the people that are struggling financially, it's like we're going to turn that into our power by focusing into the value, like how we can turn whatever into gold or coal into a diamond. It's like taking what is rough and molding it into something that's more beautiful. And I feel like that alchemy is going to be taking place individually in our lives from whatever we are being faced with. And there are going to be challenges. I never sugarcoat anything in my sessions. It's like there are these things that are going to happen. But how are you going to alchemize this into something that's more beautiful, something that's more profound? And I just feel like it's not going to be the same thing for everybody. We need to look at what we're alchemizing in our own lives when it's the right time. And that's going to do with our power and our pain.
How are those two connected? Power and pain.
Well, from pain, when it's transmuted effectively and it's understood, some of the painful things that I've experienced, which are significant, and one day I will share them when it's the right time, they have been my ultimate power. And remember, what we experience as pain is not only just for ourselves. Sometimes we're experiencing things to create the value, to be able to share and help people. And I just feel like that too is a transmutation and an alchemization of energy. Pain does transform to power if we choose to see it that way. And that can take time. Sometimes we just want to have the crying fit and the pity party and all of that for a while. But then that conversion, because I've seen it in myself, like we're around that after Uluru, and just about a month before, Spirit was telling me, you've changed forever, Gaia. You're never going to be the same. And that's because something really significant happened where I fully knew my value. And I was like, yep, from that horrendous pain that got me quite sick, I converted that. And I was like, oh no, actually, nothing can throw me off now. I know who I am. So I just think that will be a lot of our pain will be alchemized into power for next year.
And in what ways will the Christ consciousness be coming in more strongly in the years to come?
I think we're going to be seeing a lot of females with the Christ consciousness energy coming in. I feel like, I know this is a weird thing to say, but it's what wants to come out of my mouth. You know how people say, Jesus will come back again. I just think that his energy lives in so many of us that that's all just going to start awakening. The number of emails that we get from people saying, oh my God, I'm 33 and I'm having an awakening. It's coming through everything. It's coming through the air that we breathe. It's coming through the land that we walk on. It's coming through where we are called to go. That is all Christ consciousness. And this is coming from a Hindu girl that grew up, in the Hindu culture. But I just see a lot of females coming into their power, and a lot of the, this ancestral work here in New Zealand with our Indigenous Māori and the Indigenous of Australia and the Indigenous all over the world that have been suppressed. It's like the Christ consciousness energy is going to help all the underdogs rise, because that is the true essence of power and connection. So I think we'll be seeing it a lot with many people having awakenings around that Christ time, and a lot of females stepping into that female version of Christ, not to be God or not to be, prayed to, but just that power to be able to be here in life, experience it, heal, and trust in the lives and death cycle that happen for all of us.
Yeah. Last time we talked about, there was, certain lifetimes of yours where you walked at the same time as Jesus. And now that we're talking about the feminine in the Christ consciousness, what do you remember about Mary Magdalene?
It's really interesting that you're asking me this, because I recently had a vision of being in the Qumran caves with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I didn't know anything about this. And I was thinking, why are you showing me this? Like, what has this got to do with anything? Because I don't actually know much about it. And I feel like Mary Magdalene is inside all women, whether they realize it or not. And for me, in lifetimes that I've had around her and with her, she's played a big part in that divine feminine rising in all of us. So while I don't remember particular incidences with her, I just feel her love and her power rising in all of us. And I feel like people are going to be starting to remember, again, like me being in the Qumran caves with her around. It's like we're going to start remembering how we've been associated with all of these amazing beings that have been part of us historically, but also from a soul blueprint. So while I'm not getting any visions as I'm talking to you about this, but I'm getting the feeling of the awakening of the divine feminine from her, from a previous incarnation, but in all of us listening today. So we'll be feeling her around. Like before I came online with you, I was feeling the Ascended Master Lady Nada. And
never heard of her.
No, I hadn't either. And I'm sure a lot of you who are listening would have heard from her. And I just felt, again, the heart opening, and it's all connected. All of this is connected with Mary Magdalene and everyone. But again, it's coming back to following the star is what they're showing me too, like being led by the star, our inner star, and the stars that are all around us. So I'm really excited for all of us. And I think that if you're struggling, go back to yourself. You are powerful. You are unique. There's something about you that everyone wants a part of in a good way. And the more you believe that and awaken that divine feminine power and your sacral chakra coming up to your heart and blossoming, that is when you're truly going to reap the benefits of this human existence.
And Gaia, as you know, we end every show with a segment called the final trio. Literally, that's our cue, the ambulance. When I record in Colombia, you'll probably hear all types of background noises. So I'm sorry about that. When I'm in Madrid, it's like much more quiet, but that was a cue for us. And before getting into the final trio, I would love to open the space for you to let us know where people can connect with you, where people can find you, reach out to you, how your one-on-one sessions are going, if you're opening up your calendar, and any events that you have going on in your world.
The best way to learn or reach me is through my app. So by searching Soul 33 on your Apple or Play Store. We do have a website, soul33 with the numerals.com. I do host one-on-one sessions, but there is a wait time. But there are other services also if you need anything. But the app's a great place for you to experience to have power on your own, to be able to heal yourself with my guidance. I don't have any events, although people are asking me, but I haven't had that calling just yet. But when I do,
let's do one.
We should. When I do, I will let you know, or if we collaborate, that would be amazing also. But yeah, right now it's the app, or another service, or just joining the wait list. But I always let people know I am one person, and I do my very, very best to see as many people as I can. So I'm very grateful for those who just understand that the timing will be the timing when you do see me.
Sacred Site Retreat 2025, just dropping that in there. Comment below if you want that.
Awesome.
For the final trio, the first question I had for you is, what is one thing that will anchor the golden age into our reality now?
It's a very simple thing that I want to say. And it's the simple things that we remember and can do. Just know your power. We live feeling that we are not empowered sovereign beings. And if you want to anchor into this golden age now, you need to trust and know your power without even knowing what it is. Just knowing that you've got it, that it's your birthright to have that power and to be in that power. And it's just remembering that even if you're still figuring it out, because we're all still figuring it out, I'm still figuring it out too. So I think if you want to anchor, it's just reminding yourself, I actually have the power to change. I have the power to discern. I have the power to make new decisions. I have the power to leave. I have the power to stay. Just reminding yourself that you are an empowered being that is being greatly supported by the divine. That is how you're going to anchor yourself from a simple point of view right now.
Beautiful. If you could activate one gift in all people, what would it be?
It's going to come back to the whole thing of, okay, how am I going to phrase this in a positive light? We want to honor. I want to activate the gift where we as individuals can honor the person that we are with. Meaning we are not needing to justify in our head, like, why is this person better than me, or why am I not? You can truly just honor that person. For my birthday, one of the rituals that my friend did for me, and I didn't know she was doing this, is she had my feet in a copper bath of water with flowers in it. And every one of my friends came up to me and washed my feet, and they held my hands, and they looked me in the eyes, and they told me what they honored about me. And I was in floods of tears because nobody's ever looked me in the eyes like that and just gone, we see you. That's the gift I want to activate, is for us to be able to feel so anchored and powerful in who we are that I honor you, Emilio. I honor the sensitive, beautiful soul that you are, that is creating the space for all of us to share our gifts without feeling like it's taking anything away from you. And I feel that's very, very important for all of us. Sorry.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. I honor that. I think that we got the glimpse of what it is like, but I wanted to ask you, how do we see the synchronicity in all things?
First, you have to believe in the magic. You really have to believe, because some of the things that happened to me, Emilio, I literally want to fall off my chair sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, like how am I being gifted by these amazing synchronicities led to all you and everywhere? We don't actually need to search for it. It will just come to you. Like a lot of people will try and analyze signs, but sometimes things just fall into your path and you're like, I need to pay attention to this. If you pay attention to one thing and acknowledge it, I see you, the next thing comes. I see you. The next thing comes, I see you. Like whenever I see, like I live by the ocean, whenever whales go by or dolphins go by, I see you. Thank you so much for giving me your energy. When a rainbow comes up, it's like, thank you so much for creating that bridge for me to the other realms. Or, in Uluru, the rainbow serpent. And I just feel like when you see something, don't just dismiss it, acknowledge it. I see you. And then more will come. And then you just can't help but being led into the synchronistic path where you're like, how did I even get here? And it's because you trusted and you acknowledged. Very important to trust and acknowledge that something and someone has been seen. And that just leads you to so much more.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about what other magical things are going to be happening in our lives, all of us.
A lot. And one thing that came through is that we're always in a two-way conversation with the universe. And all of us have, you call it spirit, some people call it their higher selves, but that spirit is leaving us breadcrumbs while we're in this physical vessel for us to remember why we came down all the way from the higher dimensions into physical reality, the third dimension, to play out and remember our greatness. And just honoring you, Gaia, for the way that you show up. I have had chills throughout the whole conversation. And that's when I know that a person is speaking from their heart. And it is my intention, and I told you this from the beginning, to cultivate more heart-centered connections, more heart-centered guests on the show, because that's what we're all about. That's what's going to lead us into an authentic path, into a path that's for our highest timeline. So beautiful to be here with you. I know this is just the second of many third, fourth, fifth rounds. And
I want to come to you next time, actually physically do a...
We should.
Be amazing.
I would love that. And in person.
I'd love
Beautiful.
that too.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Emilio, for having me. It's always just such an honor to be with someone who is very pure in their offering to the world. And I can feel that from the moment that we met to even how my heart has been responding to you and your questions. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's easy when you're doing that with someone who's in the same place. So thank you.